good friend Hans von Spakovsky. He's the senior legal analyst at the Heritage Foundation. He is also the director of election reform at Heritage Action. His second book, which he co-authored, the dynamic duo of John Fund and Hans, their first one, Who's Counting, and this will be released on June 10th, this being Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department. And just reading the bullet points, this one is going to get a lot of attention because Hans details what so many of us suspected, and we're looking for the concrete evidence to back up because we thought, wait a second, it seems like Eric Holder is not telling the truth. And is he being used to protect as a heat shield, quote unquote, as the book will detail? Hans, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Crane. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this book. Tell me something. When there's an outbreak of journalism on CNN, Candy Crowley had it, and she was asking Susan Rice, National Security Advisor to the President, one that did not need to be confirmed to the President, but I digress, was asked about the legality of releasing Guantanamo prisoners, high value, meaning the fact that they have American blood on their hands and innocent blood on their hands, for the soldier Bergdahl. And here is part of her answer. Now, she has detailed the fact that it was timely because of the health concerns that were reported coming from Bo Bergdahl, and the concern was he was going to die, so they accelerated some things. However, they did not notify Congress, and that's what this particular clip is all about. Roll it.
We did.
Why didn't you notify Congress?
For that very reason, Candy. First of all, this opportunity is
under
one,
the law, it says you should.
This opportunity is one that has been briefed to Congress when we had past potential to have this kind of arrangement. So it wasn't unknown to Congress. The Department of Defense consulted with the Department of Justice. And given the acute urgency of the health condition of Sergeant Bergdahl, and given the President's constitutional responsibilities, it was determined that it was necessary and appropriate not to adhere to the 30-day notification requirement, because it would have potentially meant that the opportunity to get Sergeant Bergdahl would have been lost, and therefore...
Well, why not? Is there no one in Congress you can trust with the information to call up the chairman of the intelligence committees or the chairwoman on the Senate side and say, I want you to know this is happening, we have to act now?
Well, we did do that. In fact, we had briefed Congress in the past about this potential.
In the past, but when you knew you were going.
And when the deal was done and Sergeant Bergdahl was in U.S. custody is when we began making notifications to Congress.
But so there was a conscious decision to break the law as you know it, dealing with the detainees and the release of them?
Candy, no. As I said earlier, the Department of Defense consulted with the Department of Justice, and it is our view that it was appropriate and necessary to do this in order to bring Sergeant Bergdahl back safely.
All right. Edited for time, did not distort content in any way. I'm not MSNBC. I don't have to do that. Tell me something, Hans. Did the Obama administration, through these actions, break the law?
Well, there's no question that they didn't comply with a provision in federal law. This was passed in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013, which said that they've got to notify various committees not later than 30 days before the transfer of any detainees in Guantanamo to foreign countries. They clearly didn't do that. Now, on the other hand, when the President signed that defense bill, he put in a signing statement saying that he questioned the constitutionality of that provision because of the fact that he's the commander-in-chief. So, yeah, they didn't comply with the law. Was the law beyond the authority of Congress? That question I can't really answer.
Do you believe that the Taliban is a terrorist organization? And if so, did we negotiate with terrorists?
Oh, there's no question we negotiated with terrorists. I mean, it's very clear that the administration decided to break and no longer adhere to the very long-standing policy that we've had Democrat and Republican administrations not to negotiate with terrorists. They tried to say, oh, no, we didn't because the country of Qatar was in between. But, I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption. We clearly negotiated and agreed to give them the top 5 senior-most Taliban leaders at Guantanamo in exchange for this American POW.
With the amount of times that we've seen the presidents, the administrations stepping beyond the law, sidestepping it, changing it, did this surprise you?
Unfortunately, it didn't, but I don't think they seem to understand just how dangerous what they've done is. They've now told every terrorist group around the world that if they can seize an American, that group can use that to get terrorists who've been captured out of Guantanamo and elsewhere. Plus, like I said, these were the top 5 senior-most Taliban leaders. These are people who were responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent men, women, and children, and anyone who doubts that they're going to go right back to doing that, like the administration, is just being foolish.
Latest statistic from Fox News, Catherine Herridge this morning cited that 1 in 3 prisoners who have been released have joined the battle or once again gone back to jihad, as they would describe it. So when we talk about another government securing, we also have video and Brian Ross reporting that it doesn't seem that there's many restrictions on those 5 Gitmo detainees. Tell me something, Hans, just going back in a little, or the ones that were released that you just described, the high value. A little history here. There was a myth out there that people were being abused in Guantanamo Bay, that this was the reason that people were attacking us. And when the press looked at that and looked at the legalities of having enemy combatants and the Geneva Convention speaking to that issue as well, these were never regular soldiers of war. They were outside the protections that were in line for POWs. So first off, tell me, legally, is that true? And secondly, didn't we go even an extra step beyond putting 15 pounds on average on each one of them through food of assuring their rights that were secure and that we were not torturing them?
No, that is exactly right. I happen to have a colleague, a lawyer at Heritage, who worked for the Defense Department during the Bush administration as an expert on these matters, and they very clearly were within all of the norms of international law and the Geneva Convention with what was going on in Guantanamo Bay, and these prisoners were extremely well treated. None of the groups that went down there trying to find some kind of issue or problem were ever able to find anything. And from the food they were given to their health care, I mean, they had better treatment certainly than many of our soldiers in the field have.
Who lobbied for him? Do we have the current Attorney General? Did he lobby on behalf of the Guantanamo prisoners, or part of that? Am I drawing a connection that's not there in some way through law firms or otherwise?
His law firm was involved in trying to help terrorists in Guantanamo, as were many lawyers hired by the administration and put into the Justice Department, including, by the way, many of them were put into the National Security Division that deals with this, which is kind of like representing, it's kind of like hiring mob lawyers and putting them into the organized crime task force at the Justice Department.
And so many times I sit back, Hans, and I go, I can't believe this is happening. And it's so blatant, as I described in the opening. And yet you've talked about how, yeah, it is, and I'm not surprised. And that's one of the reasons. Is that one of the reasons you wrote your book?
It is one of the reasons I wrote the book. I think Look, folks read every day about the lawlessness of the Justice Department and the things that Eric Holder is doing, but I still think they're going to be shocked by many of the things that John Fund and I write about in this book. Even I, who pay attention every day to what's going on at DOJ, even I was shocked at some of the things that I found.
And we'll bring up some of the clips when we do a full segment on the book, at least. Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, released June 10th, because we've gone back and looked at the Rich pardon, and the current Attorney General, he lied. There's no other word for it. And that was bipartisan in the sense of trying to understand what exactly happened there. But I digress. I just really, this book is an important read. Your first book that you co-authored with John Fund was Who's Counting? And the subject of voter ID and voter fraud, we've talked about a great deal because of the myths and the statements that it does not exist. You've written recently that our Attorney General is ignoring a case or cases in Virginia. What are you talking about, Hans?
Well, this was something I was personally involved in. I was a county election official in the biggest county in Virginia, and 2 years ago, we sent a letter to the Holder Justice Department notifying them that we had found almost 300 people who were registered to vote. About half of them had voted, and these were all individuals who, when they went to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get their driver's licenses, told DMV that they were not U.S. citizens. That is a felony under federal law, and you can imagine what happened to that letter crane. It disappeared into a black hole. We got no emails, no phone calls, no inquiries from the Justice Department. They could have cared less about investigating and prosecuting those cases.
So what happens when we hear this? People oftentimes will write me a note, and it won't be anything particular. They'll just say, what happened to Fast and Furious? What happened with the IRS? What happened with the AP and the story of that bugging of the AP reporter, alleged bugging of the AP reporter, even Fox News' James Rosen? They're like, where does this stuff go? Hans?
Well, a lot of the stuff just gets dropped. Fast and Furious, the House of Representatives, is still in court trying to enforce their contempt proceedings against the Attorney General and get a judge to order him to turn over the documents he's refused to divulge. We should get an opinion probably sometime this year on that. And so, again, that's something that's unfortunately delayed for quite a while.
I asked you a little while back about immigration, one of our many interviews, and the idea of providing amnesty for X amount of people before 2016. Now, where there are more reports of President Obama, the administration, and people crossing the border illegally, floods of folks crossing the border illegally, we're not able to keep up. The resources that we have government-wise are not able to keep up with it. Hans, what's going on with immigration?
Well, the Justice Department has virtually ceased to enforce the immigration laws. They're not doing anything with regard to people who are here illegally. They are releasing large numbers of individuals who are here illegally and who have been charged with serious crimes. And because they basically put an administrative amnesty, yes, it's no surprise it's attracting huge numbers of people who are crossing the border illegally to get in, because they know once they're here, they won't have to leave.
And Hans, you've done some report, and I should specify illegal immigration, because that's like saying climate change and not mentioning man-made climate change and the impact. It all of a sudden becomes about immigration as opposed to illegal immigration and how we're going to do it and what we're going to do and the rule of law. So you've done extensive reporting, and along with Heritage overall, about the impact that amnesty would have. Yet we do have some strange alliances there in the like of business, big business, supporting immigration reform, a.k.a. amnesty, Crane Durham's a.k.a. with Chris Farley quotes. Tell me this, Hans, cost-benefit-wise, what happens when or if amnesty or the pathway to citizenship is granted? What does that do to government spending?
Oh, my gosh. Look, we have problems today with huge government debt and huge government deficits. That will skyrocket exponentially if we give amnesty to the estimated 11 to 12 million illegal immigrants in this country, particularly if you keep in mind that once you are a citizen, you then have the ability to sponsor other members of your family who are not yet citizens and are outside of the country. So the eventual cost of this will be for a lot more than 11 million people, and the spending on everything from Social Security to Medicaid to Medicare will go up so greatly that it may frankly bankrupt the nation.
And a nation that's already 16 trillion, 17 trillion debt-wise, yearly deficits, certainly we're looking in the billions, but the lowest one, if I go down that road, I'm going to start talking about how the comparison between the two administrations, and I don't want to do that right now because I want to focus in on the one way we expose all this stuff, one of the many ways, but the real way to do it is through freedom of speech. And Hans, when it comes to these debates, we know in the political arena, if we support the rule of law, oftentimes we're called bigots, racists. We're part of the moron all-star team of the KKK, the Westboro Baptist Church, and the Black Panthers. Somehow we end up on a Jerry Springer stage with them, merely for calling for the enforcement of the law. It's ridiculous, quite asinine, but nevertheless it happens. We go to another way speech is being attacked. Citizens United, all we've heard Harry Reid has an obsession with the Koch brothers. What is the game plan here? Why do we hear about how money is corrupting politics when it's the Koch brothers, or that Citizens United, they want to bring cases about to that organization to disclose more information, pretty much implying, at least I'm inferring, that, oh, these guys are hiding something and there's this maybe cabal behind it that we really should know more about in the sense of donors without the regular disclosure requirements that we already have. Hans?
Well, it's actually worse than that because, look, tomorrow in the Senate Judiciary Committee, they're holding a hearing on a proposed constitutional amendment. Harry Reid's going to speak in favor of it. There are 40 other Democratic sponsors. This bill would amend the First Amendment to basically give Congress the ability to restrict political speech and political activity by candidates. And, I mean, this is unprecedented. This would be the first time in our history that there has been a culling back of the Bill of Rights. I just find it shocking and outrageous that this bill is even being considered in the U.S. Senate. But what's worse is that almost half the U.S. Senate supports cutting back on the First Amendment.
Are they using, hey, the Wizard of Oz thing? The rich guy behind the curtain is pulling the string. That's
exactly it. And you know those are ridiculous claims. Most of the claims that Harry Reid has made, for example, about the Koch brothers, have been proven to be untrue. But they apparently think this will help them in the elections. They want to create these boogeymen that they can concentrate on, and they think somehow that will help them retain control of the Senate in November.
What's important is the truth, and we know the truth, and we know it because Hans von Spakovsky speaks it, chases it down, is an expert on the law, senior legal analyst, is able to do that, and he's on so much because we want to know, okay, what are we really deciding here? Not the political bunny stew that is put before us, not the baloney. We want the truth, and that's what you've done. Your book, Obama's Enforcer, Eric Holder's Justice Department, due out June 10th. This would make a great Dad's Day gift. It would be fantastic. I'm just throwing that out. And you are going to come on the show. We're going to at least do 2 segments on this. I hope I'm asking you on air because I know you can never say no like that.
Of course not. I'll be happy to do that, Crane.
Hans, we really do appreciate it, and we will get your thoughts on the hearing tomorrow as well through commentary, I'm sure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Sure thing, anytime.
Take care, buddy. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Okay, we covered a lot, and we didn't even get to the EPA, truly. Tomorrow on the show, I'm checking right now because we already have an all-star lineup. Tom Jocelyn's going to be with us. Now, Tom Jocelyn is an expert not only on Guantanamo Bay, Benghazi, but the terrorists specifically who were released. He is the one that they're citing the research. Everybody's citing his research on these terrorists because he really, I can't say he's written the book on Gitmo, but he is the expert when it comes to this and what this means in the greater picture in our war with Islamofascism, which doesn't end. We either win it or lose it. And what we do right now, these steps are advancing their victory over us. But I digress. Speaking of the book, who wrote the book on Gitmo, working on Colonel Kukulu in this segment tomorrow night. So tomorrow night, we're going to have Colonel Kukulu with a soldier, a Green Beret, infantry, Vietnam, extraordinary man, runs the Valhalla Projects, written 3 books on war, and his most recent Military Police about Iraq and Afghanistan. Before that, he wrote Inside Gitmo. So he's going to detail the truth about this. Why am I spending so much time on this? Well, it's a big story. Why is it a big story? Because it sets the stage for what will be happening and some other headlines that will be coming down. And what gets me is this is attempted to be sold as something good. Now, we can all say, Bergdahl, pray for him. And, yeah, I'm happy he's safe. Absolutely. And I'm not condemning behavior in that way. I will say that what we are talking about is how he came into their custody, and the statements have been made that he deserted his post. And our soldiers died. 6 died trying to get him back. We got to have the whole truth. Nothing but the truth. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Live the honor of your life, compassion in your heart, and always keep the faith in Jesus Christ. Amen.